Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our Podium Picks. Sean Woodland and Tommy Marquez here. We are inside the Working Against Gravity studios, and we have very, I think, special, very personal, very important Podium Picks episode that we've wanted to do for a while. We said, you know what? Now is the time to do it. We're going to do our favorite Marvel movies. Now, we are excluding the Avengers movies because clearly we would have the same list if that was the case. So we're taking those out, and these are all the standalone movies. But before we do that, talking about superheroes, you want to eat and train and look like a superhero, Tommy, you might want to give old Working Against Gravity a shout.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say Working Against Gravity can help you become the superhero of your story with their online nutrition coaching. Working Against Gravity provides one-on-one coaching to anyone willing to sign up and looking to improve their quality of life and create some healthy lifestyle habits specifically around nutrition. Whether you're an everyday athlete just looking to get in better shape and maximize your performance, or whether you're an elite athlete and you're looking for the minutia in terms of trying to isolate every little variable to, be as fit as you possibly can be, Working Against Gravity can help you. They've helped people who are on keto diets, paleo diets, on, certain restrictive diets based on allergies, whether you're intermittent fasting, whether you're, just like me and you consume everything in sight, or anything else for that matter, whether you're pregnant or whether you're trying to get pregnant or whether you're bouncing back from pregnancy. They have a variety of programs that can help you. And Working Against Gravity has worked with some of the biggest names in the CrossFit space. Brooke Wells, Cole Sager, Katrin David's daughter, worked with Cara Saunders. They've worked with a handful of people at all levels of the sport, and they can certainly help you. And they're also going to help you out with a deal right now using the code ELITE50. It will give you $50 off your first month if you go to workingagainstgravity.com. And that's not it. They also have a coaching program where they can train you just like they train their trainers that work with people one-on-one. If you are interested in the career path of being a nutrition coach, as well as an affiliate program, those will hopefully open up soon. I know that we've ran specials for that in the past, but keep your eyes peeled. But in the very least, head over to workingagainstgravity.com, use the code ELITE50, and join the nearly 21,000 people who have utilized WAG services to maximize their life.
Yeah, you mentioned that affiliate program. That was super popular the last time we talked about that, and that thing filled up really fast. Well, speaking of super popular, Tommy, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is very popular, not only amongst the members of who are on the show on a regular basis, but also our listening audience. And we make Marvel references all the time. And many people have suggested that we should do a Podium Picks of our favorite Marvel movies. And we said, yeah, okay, we'll eventually do it. We said, you know what? Let's get this sucker done.
Yes.
So we're going to do, as we always do, we'll do Dark Horse, Spirit of the Games, and then our top three. So I think, is it my turn to start?
I think it's your turn.
I think it is my turn to start.
Yes.
And my list is changing as we speak.
Oh,
because I'm replacing my Dark Horse.
That is normally reserved for me.
I know. Usually you're the one who's making the last minute changes. I'm making the last minute changes. And I'm going to break the rules a little bit. So
okay.
I'll start with Spirit of the Games. And it was a dead tie for me.
Okay.
And the reason being is that I picked both Captain Marvel and Black Panther for me. Those are my Spirit of the Games. Because being a sci-fi nerd, I've always been proud of being a sci-fi nerd because I think science fiction and comic books have done a good job, I think, of always sort of leading the way when it comes to diversity and inclusivity. And you go all the way back to the original Star Trek series. And that was novel to have. You had Lieutenant Uhura and you had Sulu, to see that those faces on TV in major roles. So I think it was really cool that we got two really good movies with Black Panther and with Captain Marvel that hopefully opened up this genre to a wider audience. And both the movies were I loved them. They were both great. And I think it's really cool that young kids of color and girls now have, and not only in the Marvel universe, now have heroes who are, not just bit players, but some of the, most interesting characters in the entire thing to emulate and to look up to and to say, hey, that's cool. There's someone who looks like me. Need more. But I think that I'm really happy that Marvel did that and decided to put those two movies out there and do it in a way in which they did it, because they were both so well done and just really entertaining. And I hope there's more of that coming. And I think there are in
Yeah.
the Marvel whatever phase 20 we are in right now. I don't know what phase we're in.
Phase 4?
Are we
Phase
in
5?
Okay.
I think phase 4 now. I think Far From Home was phase 4.
Mhm.
I do think one of the best bits. I really like when music is used properly within the
Mhm.
framework of a movie, the musical score, and I think the use of, and it was worked doubly,
Yes.
of "I'm Just a Girl"
Mhm.
and from No Doubt
Yep.
in Captain Marvel was phenomenal.
Oh, 100%.
It was spot on with the times and being the
Mhm.
90s. And that was kind of what No Doubt represented with this band
Yeah.
that had a woman frontman, a front woman, I guess. Wow. But and I thought it hit perfectly. As soon as that started coming in, I was like, you could hear the
Yeah.
dun 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 dun. I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
So those are my spirit of the game. I had to give it to 2.
I'll allow that. That is
Okay.
definitely valid.
Thank
I
you.
like that.
Now my dark horse just changed.
Okay.
And it is because before we came on here, I was looking at a list, like someone else's list. I went, oh, I forgot about that one.
Mhm.
I love that movie.
Okay.
How did I not put it on? And that is Doctor Strange.
Oh,
I loved that movie because I went in thinking like, okay, this is going to be one where maybe I enjoy it, but it's a filler one.
Mhm.
But man, I really
was
really
really
like
good.
that movie. In fact, it's one of those that if it's on TV, I'll probably leave it. I'm dropping the remote and watching me some Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And I wasn't well versed in what he was all about or his
Mhm.
character or any of it. And I found myself really getting into it. And I love the way that they developed the character. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was a great choice.
Mhm.
And I hope that they develop him more now in this next phase because he only had that one movie, but played a big part in the Avengers movies.
Yeah.
But man, I was thoroughly entertained by that.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
those
That's a great pick.
those are my first 2. to
Yes,
kick
I
things
love
off.
it.
All right.
That's a great pick.
Now I'm more excited to hear yours because I know this is you're more well versed in this
Okay.
than I am. So I feel like this is kind of the authoritative voice on this subject is about to
Okay.
speak here.
All right. So my spirit of the games, my very first pick for this podium picks, I guess, is also the very first movie of the MCU and is the original Iron Man.
Okay.
So, and this rings true for a few reasons. This was the movie that turned around the belief that a comic book franchise can exist in large scale.
Mm-hmm.
So there was other elements of comic book stuff that had happened before, whether it be Batman movies, whether it be the first and second Spider-Man reboots, whether it be X-Men,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of flopped at times, had some good moments, but Iron Man really started this kind of snowball effect of where the characters really started to personify those roles beyond the confines of a typical reboot, right? Like now that there's been multiple Spider-Man and everything like that, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man really kickstarted this absolute just hot streak of picking the perfect person for the perfect comic book character to where it's almost impossible to see them as anyone else.
Yeah.
And then you look at the movie and you can go back and watch Iron Man now and it feels like it was made a year ago.
Yeah. Wasn't that 2007, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the first. Yeah, it was the first one. 13 years ago, I think. Yeah,
I think it was 2007.
And it still holds up. And you look at it and everything that Robert Downey Jr. accomplished in the character of Tony Stark, and oh my gosh, Jon Favreau as the director accomplished within that too, was like, oh, these can work. You can use big name blockbuster actors in these comic book roles and bring to life a universe that has cohesive planning, the foresight, because you go back and look at the Easter eggs in Iron Man that get played upon. I mean, you look at the bookending movies right now in the MCU, the Spider-Man Far From Home and Iron Man. There's 2 characters in there where an Easter egg plays all the way into the forefront. The engineer in Iron Man 1, which didn't know how to turn the arc reactor into something portable, and Obadiah Stane yells at him. He's like, "Tony Stark, build this well, box of scraps." That guy is in Far From Home. He is the illusion tech engineer.
Oh man, I didn't
for
know
Mysterio.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wow.
So
all right.
this just the planning and the groundwork that they laid in that movie that's why it's the spirit, because it is the spirit of the full MCU from there. Dark horse. I'm with you, Sean. And my dark horse pick is Doctor Strange.
Okay, see, good, because I'll tell you when it's over what I originally had. But yeah,
so
good.
Doctor Strange introduced magic and sorcery into the MCU, and where otherwise things were left to a general assumption that superhero powers exist, but where is this all kind of tapped into? And part of that came from the inclusion of the multiverse for the first time touched on in Doctor Strange. And the casting was tremendous. Benedict Cumberbatch was a perfect pick for Doctor Strange. You had some low-key hitters there with Tilda Swinton as the Sorcerer Supreme that came back in Endgame. Benedict Wong as Wong, fantastic kind of foil to Doctor Strange, playing as the sidekick. Rachel McAdams as the love interest in that, bringing a little like that Oscar-worthy, heartthrob into the fold. And I thought that for someone like Benedict Cumberbatch, who can really be a method actor, I think the elements and nuances of Doctor Strange's development in terms of the MCU were crucial, in him being one of the primary focal points towards the solution of beating Thanos later on with the Time Stone, with his ability to look into the future. And if you even notice, you know how the kind of the impetus for Doctor Strange's movement into the world of sorcery was trying to get his hands back. And his character arc is interesting because if you look at Infinity War and Endgame, he still has those. So when he lifts up the one, he never got rid of his. He can surely fix it if he wants to, but he kept it as a little element, as like the focus of that's what drives him, right? It was his belief that he that move from selfish to thinking of others and taking on the role of Sorcerer Supreme. So there was a lot of little things in there, whether it was Dormammu in the Dark Dimension, whether there was the inclusion of sorcery that he brings up in another movie that I'm about to bring up too. Utilizing time, manipulation of time, which was the key facet in Endgame. All of that was little things that Doctor Strange kind of accelerated the timeline.
Well, even it was Chiwetel Ejiofor, is that how you say his name? The actor,
so. Yeah.
Who plays phenomenal. Love that guy.
Mordo,
yeah, he was great. Gives him the Wi-Fi password, and then Mads Mikkelsen, I think, was the main villain, right? Yeah, they were great too.
Great, but, and Mordo
there was not a weak spot in that movie.
No, and Mordo, we're going to see more of him because the post-credit scene was him, finding other sorcerers, and Mordo is a recurring villain in the comics. So, it was. I really enjoyed Doctor Strange. It was one that caught me off guard.
Exactly.
It was like, whoa.
Agreed. All right, now we're into our top three. So my third place is going to be quick because you mentioned it as your spirit of the games, and that is the original Iron Man.
Okay, yeah.
And for all the reasons you mentioned, but two, it's like the concept of having a franchise play out over 19 movies or however many they did was unfathomable. There was no way something like that was going to happen. And up until that point, superhero movies were basically limited to one or maybe, two or three, two sequels, the Batman movies that were coming out and that had come out before with Michael Keaton and Val Kilmer and that whole crew. But there was never a bigger sort of thing at play. And I remember when it came out, hearing that they might be laying the ground for an Avengers movie. And that blew my mind, being like, wait, they're actually going to do this? And it was also the first movie that I can remember, and I could be wrong about this, but I can remember having a post-credit scene that meant something. Yeah, leading into the next installment. So the fact that they were able to make a great movie, and cast it perfectly, but then also lay the groundwork for what to come. I don't think anybody anticipated. I thought they'd do they'd do an Iron Man movie, a Hulk, a Thor, and then they would do the Avengers, and that was it. Yeah, but I didn't know it was going to be as big and as successful as it was, and it was beyond my expectations. So that's why I got to put that one on the podium.
Yeah, it bought Kevin Feige the equity, the movie equity
Yes.
to pursue the MCU as a bigger
Right.
piece.
So that's my third place.
All right. So my third place is Guardians of the Galaxy 1,
Okay.
Volume 1. So this is what turned the MCU cosmic. So it took the MCU outside of the Earth-based focal points, because even with Thor, it was brought to Earth. Even though you had little glimpses of Asgard and these other places, Guardians of the Galaxy is really what expanded the universe to make it fully cosmic. And it introduced higher order beings like Celestials, like the Collector, like the Infinity Stones, to a point where you started to understand and gather the full scope of it. It wrapped in Thanos more collectively with Ronin. And I think James Gunn did probably some of the best work of any director, save maybe one other instance, in the MCU of making the most out of what was initially his starting point. Because the Guardians of the Galaxy were probably, if you look at all the entities in the MCU, whether it's Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, Spider-Man, like the Guardians of the Galaxy are probably towards the bottom as far as publicly known entities.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more of a cult classic as far as comic books go. And he turned these characters into this wacky cosmic family that is so much a part of pop culture now that it was like you would have never expected that leading in. It also had probably the best soundtrack by far of any Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. And it's another example of how beautiful casting can work when you have the right people in place.
Who thought that Dave Bautista was going to be that good as Drax?
Oh my gosh, fantastic. And the comedic tropes that they used, especially at the end when, spoiler alert, when he's standing face to face with Ronan, who's just basically wielded the Power Stone, is arguably maybe the most powerful living being in the galaxy, and he delays by having a dance off. It's fantastic, but it works.
Yep.
And that even the final sequence and they all grab hands is fantastic. And I just really enjoyed it because I think the gravity of some of the loss in Infinity Wars was heightened most by some of the losses within the Guardians group. Seeing, Groot and Rocket go through that. And all of this was laid through this first movie. And I cannot wait for Guardians 3. It's like one of the movies I'm most excited about.
All right. Well, that's your third place. Now we're going to second. And for me, second and number one, it was right there.
Okay.
Second for me is Thor Ragnarok.
Okay. All right.
And because it was a great action flick, but it was hilarious. And it really, I think as far as like a tone and a style, it is definitely on its own, but it worked great. The dynamic between Thor and Hulk and some of the one-liners in there and Jeff Goldblum as the big bad was fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
I love villains who know who get frustrated with their underlings. He's like, why are you handing me the melt stick? I want the melt stick. That kind of thing. And the whole, that we're friends from work, like that whole thing with
I know him.
Yeah, I know him. That was great. And I'm a big Thor fan anyway, but some of the physical humor that's in there. And the way that I love how Banner is sort of this, he's going through this neurotic kind of nervous breakdown the whole time. And I like how it introduces the Valkyries, and you get to see it. It actually is a good leaping off point for Infinity War, I think, right? So yeah, I was thoroughly entertained by that. In fact, I saw that in Australia when we were there for the Invitational. Dave Eubanks and I, to the chagrin of my wife, she's like, "You're in Australia and you're going to go see a movie?" I was like, "Yeah, it's going to go. Come on, it's the first night. Let's go." So Dave Eubanks and I went and saw that in Australia, and I thoroughly enjoyed Thor Ragnarok. So that's my number 2. It's
probably the Marvel movie I've seen the most.
Yeah,
more than Endgame.
No,
I've probably seen it close to 20 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2 for you.
My number 2 is Captain America Winter Soldier. Now this, on any given day, this could have easily been my number 1.
Okay.
It is, there's so much that went into this one that I felt it was in my opinion, it's like the quintessential Captain America film. We learned the basis of Captain America in the first Avenger and what really kind of set the groundwork for him as a person. But then seeing that in his kind of seeing it applied in a way where he is effectively faced with the biggest ghost from his past, and that's Bucky Barnes and the loss of his best friend, which he feels partially responsible. To see him come back and then have to not only just battle that feeling, but physically battle his friend to bring him back. It was one of those ones that I was excited about because I liked the storyline. I almost had no expectations for it, and it blew me away.
Yeah.
It absolutely blew me away. Some of the sequences at the end with the final battle up in the Helicarrier, the absolutely iconic scene, which they called back to in Endgame during the time heist of him in the elevator with Stryker and
Hail Hydra.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
And that moment is like one of the most famous moments from comic book lore. And so hearing him here, or obviously that was in, they revisited it and then added to that in Endgame, but that fight scene, and it was just, to me, it was the perfect Captain America film. And it really started to drive a ton of what really was, I think, Captain America's core character arc towards the back half of the film, where above anything else, he's going to stick to what he truly feels is right. And that started with pulling Bucky back and protecting Bucky at all costs. And that turned into the Sokovia Accords and what led to Civil War and all of those things. And it worked in so many different ways that I didn't expect. I was just a huge fan.
Yeah.
Huge fan.
All right. Well, now we get to my number 1. I'm glad we're ending with your number 1, because I feel like I'm getting a master class here on some of this Marvel stuff. And my number 1 is just because I absolutely loved this movie, and you've already mentioned it, but it's Guardians of the Galaxy. That was like, I didn't know really anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy going in. I just heard the title. I'm like, well, that sounds pretty cool. And went in not knowing anything about any of these characters or their backstories. And, look, if I buy a movie and I buy the soundtrack, and I did both. Bought the movie, bought the soundtrack. The opening credits scene, I love when he's, dancing around and using the little creatures as a microphone. The dance off at the end, Dave Bautista is Drax. He was perfect. The dynamic between, Rocket and Groot. I mean, I love sort of misfit team movies or stories. Yeah. Those are right up my alley. That's why I'm looking forward to the Clone Wars Bad Batch series. Like, I think that all that kind of stuff, like, Dirty Dozen movies.
What a bunch of a-holes.
That exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's so good.
It's awesome. Like, that's and I was a little disappointed by the second one, but I loved the first one. It was just like, it kind of harkened back to days where, and I don't think we have these a lot anymore, but I kind of go back to the first time you see the Star Wars movies in those years, because there was nothing really like that. And I had that similar kind of feel because it was just a lot of fun. It was really well done. The special effects were, phenomenal. The fight scenes were great. It had everything. I laughed, I cried, all that. And the soundtrack was just, to make that, to take those songs and put it in that setting and make it work really well was great. So Guardians of the Galaxy for me is my favorite Marvel movie, aside from Endgame. Like, I just want to throw that out there. Endgame is by far the best, but if we're leaving those out, I got to go with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Have you gone on the ride in Disneyland?
I have not.
It's fantastic. Okay. It's so good. We all walked off of that, just the whole family, just laughing and smiling. I forgot to mention Winter Soldier introduces Sam Wilson, Falcon.
Yes,
which
It's a new Captain America, right?
The new Captain America in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I mean that obviously character arc is introduced there. The interesting like small love interest between Peggy Carter's niece Sharon. So the woman that helps Captain America is his actual love in Endgame's niece, and they kind of like hit it off, and it's like there's like the little bit of torn stuff, and there's the whole interaction with Zola, Dr. Zola.
Yeah, so he was good.
Yeah, really, and I think
he was in Inglourious Bastards too.
Yeah,
same actor.
Yeah, and I think that's actually going to. I think Zola is going to make a comeback in some form.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, Baron Zemo is going to be one of the primary.
Wait, maybe he's the guy I'm thinking of.
Oh, with the one who's reading the sequence to Bucky.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's Baron Zemo.
So that's the guy who's in Inglourious Bastards.
He dons his famous purple mask. He's going to be one of the primary baddies in Falcon Winter Soldier. Zola is the doctor that imprints his consciousness into the computer system with Black Widow at the end,
right?
Or when they're underground at Shield.
Okay.
He might come back, I think, as a God, what's his name?
Learning so much.
There's a bad guy. He is basically a human face inside of a tank in a body, or like a projector screen. Oh, I can't remember what his name is. But he's a pretty important bad guy going forward. But they think they might hybrid him with Zola. But yeah, so
all right, number one for you. I'm really looking forward to hearing this.
All right. It's one you've already mentioned.
Really?
My favorite one is Thor Ragnarok.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right.
For a handful of reasons. One, it resurrected Thor as a legitimate powerhouse in the MCU, because oddly enough, the second Thor film was, in my opinion, one of the worst.
Yeah.
And it ended up being one of the most important in Endgame, because that was what they went back to. But regardless,
it was still fun.
Yeah. I felt like it picked up the character arc of Thor from the first film that was truly essential to who he is, and that's the concepts of identity and how that identity wraps around family for him. And I think with losing Odin and then being confronted by his sister, and then kind of the constant battle with him and Loki were very crucial in the character arc of Thor as he moved forward. Also, the identity of him being able to move forward without his hammer was super important moving forward as well, and it allowed him to embrace things that made him more powerful in the long run. And I think it was a huge. The MCU took a chance on Taika Waititi.
Yes, you know what? I was going to mention that because you introduced Korg. To me, stole the show.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh,
the revolution has begun.
We printed flyers, but no one showed up.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Real PR disaster.
You wrote a hammer.
The hammer pulled you off. Oh my god, it's fantastic, and it makes me excited because he's going to direct the next one too.
He's also directing some Star Wars movies.
Yeah. And it also kind of, in my opinion, resurrected Hulk a little bit too, as a primary mover in the as almost kind of like this. He is the antagonist at times, but also joins in. And I think the opening sequence for the film really kind of set things off. So he's waiting to spin around. Yeah. But it starts with him in the cage and he's talking to someone. And then it cuts to it and it's just a skeleton. He's a dead guy. Oh man. That was also a great score piece when they brought in Led Zeppelin. Oh, love that. Yeah. And then they brought it back when he rediscovers his power at the end. They also had, oh my God, I can't remember his name. He plays Billy Butcher in The Boys. He plays
Carl Urban.
Carl Urban, yes.
Judge Dredd.
Yes. Yeah. And obviously Goldblum as
one of my favorite villains.
Grandmaster, phenomenal. And it's Goldblum at us, like playing him classic. The awkward silences, the pauses. I think it's some of prime Loki as far as Loki really kind of blurring the lines of ally or foe, all to his own benefit. I do think it's important because it introduces the first LGBTQ character into the MCU in Valkyrie. The concepts around family I in my opinion, Thor's character arc is one of my favorites because he is the one. So Iron Man has a sense of humanity because he is human at his core. Same with Captain America, but they're enhanced. Thor has these startling realizations of his like humanity and his ties to humanity through times when he's basically stripped of his power and beaten down to the ground, right? The hammer's taken away from him and he's forced to learn, I guess, his power from within by being a human in the first one. In the second one, he loses everything that he identifies with, his hammer, his dad, who he admires most in the world. He feels betrayed by his brother. He has a sister that he didn't even know about that is way more powerful than him. He gets thrown to this world where he's basically handcuffed by that little zap. And then he finds a way through it all to tap into that and understand that Asgard is not a place, it is a people, and let go of those things, let go of the material and attach onto the, maybe ephemeral is the word, I don't know. And that ultimately empowers him. And he becomes he becomes my favorite character from there on out. I mean, it sets the stage for his return in Infinity War, which is, in my opinion, one of the best scenes when he zaps back to Earth and uses the Bifrost and yells, "Bring me Thanos," and he's got Stormbreaker. I mean, the hair on my neck stood back up. And his whole arc going to Fat Thor, where he struggles with identity again, like all of that just moved it and made it some people hated Fat Thor. I loved it.
That was hilarious.
But yeah, that and it brought a level of comedy, of a cheeky comedy to the MCU that they hadn't seen before. And I loved it. I've seen it 20-ish times. There was a week where me and Marston watched it every single night.
Wow.
Obviously he was going through a tough time and was over at his house every evening, hanging out, spending quality time.
That movie will just make you feel better.
And we just throw it on.
Yeah.
So what do you want to watch tonight? And he had purchased Thor Ragnarok. He'd purchased it thinking he was renting it. And he's such a cheapskate. He's like, well, we're going to get that cost per view down. So we watch it every night. But
I feel like I just sat through a master class in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So thank you for teaching me some things I didn't know.
Any near misses for you?
Near misses for me, one was Captain America Civil War, because I feel like that was the one I had as my dark horse before I realized that no, it's actually going to be Doctor Strange, because I felt like that was the first time that you really saw the ensemble cast together and what it could be. And they did it in an adversarial type setting. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. I'm trying to think.
It was an Avengers movie in disguise.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Maybe the original Captain America. And I really like that too.
What's his name is Red Skull was great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hugo Weaving. Yeah. He was great. But yeah, those would be the two that I think were the closest for me that, top of mind, stand out. What about you?
So I had Civil War because it introduced us to the new Spider-Man.
Yes, he was great.
It built upon the introduction of Black Panther from Winter Soldier, which I also left out. And we got to see Ant-Man interact with some of the crew there too. I thought the
Ant-Man movies were really good too.
They were good too.
Yeah.
And I almost put on the second one because it introduced the quantum realm.
Yes, very important.
Quantum realm is a more accessible theory. And some of the interactions in Civil War were hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite storylines because it highlights the differences between Cap and Iron Man.
Were you Team Iron Man or Team Cap?
I'm Team Cap.
Really? See, I was Team Iron Man.
Yeah, I'm Team Cap.
Yeah, I'm Team Iron Man. I thought Iron Man was he's playing the long game.
He was. And I don't know. That's really tough.
Anyway.
Yeah. The reason why I'll say this, the reason why I was never Team Iron Man on that instance is because Tony becomes so hyper-focused on a singular item that it clouds his judgment in other areas that ultimately leads to an uncharacteristic misstep for him. Okay. It happened in Ultron. With Age of Ultron. That's how Ultron got created. He overlooked something. Black Panther was real close for me. That was the world building in that was second to none because you had this Wakanda as a completely new concept, and they just did a phenomenal job tapping into the cultural aspects of it. The one thing that held it back, and this is a common criticism, was the final battle. The final battle fell flat for me.
I don't even remember it.
It's him and Killmonger.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
And underground, and he uses the waves that deionize the suit and like destabilize the. Yep.
Gotcha.
So, but other than that, I thought it was phenomenal. I love the costume design was phenomenal. The ancestral realm was great. The storytelling was great. It was right up there. It was close for me for being dark horse or top 3. And then Spider-Man Homecoming. So the first Spider-Man film, full Spider-Man film with Tom Holland.
That's another one that caught me by surprise. I was like, wow, that was actually really good. I think I watched it on a plane.
Yeah. Michael Keaton as the Vulture, who's going to come back. He has a cameo in the new Morbius movie, which potentially sets up a Sinister Six movie with Spider-Man.
All right.
I love Spider-Man as the grounded, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, like the hero that is more local, like the local hero. And he's often the butt of jokes in the comics for other stuff, but I felt like they finally got it right with Tom Holland.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
So I thought Tobey Maguire was a good Peter Parker. I thought Andrew Garfield was a good Spider-Man, and I thought Tom Holland is a good both.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I thought I loved him.
Yeah.
I thought he nailed it. Yeah, he was that sort of just goofy, sort of nerdy kid. You know?
And they touch on some of the things that really make Spider-Man is like he's like the home kit scientist, you know, like making his own webs and all that good stuff. So yeah, I was a big fan of that. Oh, and one last one is the opening scene of Guardians 2. That was one of my favorite little cold opens with Baby Groot just dancing and the cast of misfits just getting wrecked in the background. Great.
Yeah.
But then it kind of
I wasn't a huge fan of that one, but it was entertaining. So,
I just like the opening scene.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Well, it's our podium picks for Marvel movies. I hope everyone learned as much as I did. Thank you, Tommy, for imparting your knowledge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Marvel Comic Universe to us. Appreciate that. We'd love to hear what your favorite Marvel movies are, excluding the Avengers, because we all know that those were clearly the best. So that's going to do it for this edition of Podium Picks. For Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland, and we'll talk to you guys soon.